This is the BBC.
Simon Mayo, 88 to 91 FM, BBC Radio 2.
Right, there you are. It's another Confessions podcast. Thank you for downloading another small collection of terrible tales from the very sinful Radio 2 listener, where we used to, here's your first special, a jingle called ID Sinatra Mail. Here we go.
88
Oh, it's that one.
91 FM.
Yes, but where?
BBC Radio 2.
Just to prove that that's where we are. Plus, also, as another bonus, I'm going to give you 50 seconds of tone. Now, these are used between studios just to make sure that we're all talking at the same level. There you go. I'm sending this to you at +4. How is that reaching you? Hang on. There you go, perfect. That might be enough, to be perfectly honest, because it does go on for a while. Anyway, what a treat that was. So the Confessions podcast, what has it got here? Well, it's got confessions called Your Cheatin' Heart, Baby You Can Drive My Car, Glory Spray, or something like that, and P Gotta Get Out of This Place. There were others, but they were decided too indelicate. Anyway, here they all come. Dear Father Simon and the Animal Collective.
Animal?
It's the name of an American band, apparently. Huh? But I didn't know that. Anyway. Now, topically, this story takes place in 1977, says Dave Not Forgiven, at the end of my first year at university, when I was meant to be studying mathematics and management. However, it being the year of anarchy in the UK, Johnny Rotten in about 20 minutes, beer and pogoing took precedence to actually turning up for lectures. Anyway, come May, it was exam time, and I really didn't know anything about my course, so I had to take alternative measures to get through to my second year. Matt is looking very stern already.
Okay.
Firstly, computer studies. I didn't understand anything about this, but the lecturer had told us that we could leave our essay answers in the envelope outside his room. Me being concerned that my fellow students passed this course, I decided that the best thing to do would be to take 3 or 4 of the answers from the envelope to my friend in the third year computer studies, who would verify whether they were right or wrong. Obviously, I then made sure that I made just 1 or 2, or maybe a few more corrections to my answer, maybe even rewrote it all over again, just to be certain. Next came exam, already not forgiven. Next, you haven't had anything yet. Next came exam time. Just before my sociology and psychology exams, I asked for some bullet points on names and theories. With this knowledge, I decided to turn the direction of every question into its relevance today, and especially about the impact of punk on that theory. Try arguing against my greater punk knowledge, I would argue with the examiners, who obviously could not challenge my superiority in this field, as they were old, or at best, hippies. Listen, mate, I'm going to say, David, 0. Kick him out. Kick him out. That's what I say. I might be a hippie, but I know this. Get him out. Mathematics was no problem, as after 10 minutes of exam time, I'm going to have to take a deep breath here, I would need to go to the toilet, having already explained to the invigilator I had a weak bladder. In those days, they just let you go to the toilet by yourself, where, of course, I'd hidden my coursework. Precisely right, Bobby. You gasped for the nation. Anyway, this is where I now need to ask for forgiveness.
Oh, now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, everything else was fine.
Not being quite sure if I'd passed all my exams or even any of them, I decided a belt and braces approach to getting through. That night, I made myself stay awake all night. Then in the morning, I put on shabby clothes, dishevelled my hair and rubbed my eyes until they were bloodshot. I then went to see my course tutor. In a very weak and tremulous voice, I said, Phil, it was the 1970s, they liked that sort of informality. I need to talk to you about something very personal, and I don't really know where to start. I left a long pause, took a resigned and hesitant deep breath and said, I think I've ruined my exams, but what I have to tell you is terribly embarrassing and worrying and upsetting. Another long pause and then an even deeper breath. I met a girl about 6 weeks ago, and things happened, and 3 weeks ago she told me she was pregnant. Phil gasped because this was the 70s and this kind of thing didn't really happen, especially to educated university students. I haven't been able to sleep for 3 weeks. I've been with my girlfriend since then and I don't really know what to do, and obviously my exams have been the last thing on my mind and I really think I've failed. Phil became very sympathetic, stroked his beard, asked what he could do to help. What was I going to do? What was she going to do? I let him guide me through all these things and then asked the important question, looking up at him with desperate bloodshot eyes. I said, Phil, I know what I've done. I've done very badly. Would it be possible for you to explain to the examiners why I have done so badly? And could they maybe reassess my results in the light of my predicament? Especially as I now need to pass university to support my child? This time Phil was actually welling up. I had his total sympathy. Of course I will. Well, how does a lecturer talk in the 70s?
Talk like that.
Of course I will, says the lecturer. In your case, I will make sure that you get through to the next year. I will take it to the Board of Governors if I have to. In the meantime, is there anything else I can do? Telling me that is so comforting and reassuring. He's an art student, okay? I'm speaking like an art student. And now I can just concentrate on my girlfriend. Thank you so much, Phil. You're a really great guy and a wonderful human being, I said, forcing a tear into my eye. With that, I got up, shook his hand compassionately and left the room. The lift was 20 yards away, but I couldn't wait to get in. I ran into the stairwell next to it, where I started to laugh uncontrollably.
Oh, dear.
This is not good. I couldn't believe what I'd just done and got away with. Fair to say I had a fantastic summer holiday, and I didn't worry about getting into my second year, which of course I achieved. Anyway, so, forgiveness for the following. Firstly, my course tutor Phil, who did the right thing. Secondly, the student who remains unknown. Now, here is the thing. If David didn't deserve to get kicked out of university and maybe thrown into jail already, no, I think that's fair enough.
Okay, yeah.
He's worked this out, okay?
Yeah.
The student unknown who did not get into the second year because of my deceit. See, because he would have bumped someone on.
Yeah.
Thirdly, the Board of Governors for going along with Phil, and finally to my girlfriend at the time, Jill, who last year I met after 40 years and told this story to. Now, it seems to me, David, frankly, that you're not even slightly apologetic. And it seems to me that you should probably be sentenced to many years for cheating and lying and misleading and fooling the authorities. And your compassionate lecturer with a beard called Phil. What do you think, Bobby Pryor?
Well, you missed someone off the list, David. You missed the taxpayer who paid your grant and fees.
There you
Remember
go.
that?
Exactly
so
right.
you got paid for this, to having fun and pogoing
You're speaking
and
for
drinking
parents
beer.
everywhere.
So, David, I mean, you say not forgiven. I wonder why you sent it in. What did you expect,
No,
really?
I added not forgiven.
Oh, you had it not forgiven.
Yeah.
Sorry. David? I can't see any mitigating
There are none.
circumstances here at all.
He's slovenly.
The thing is, David, is there are many, many, many jobs where these kind of qualities will do you well. So I wonder if you made a great success of your life regardless, and have
I think
managed to
he's
keep
probably
your.
a loser.
Well, that's what we would hope.
Sloth.
But David,
Is what this is about.
go away.
Matt's going to be on your side.
Definitely. Well, here's the thing. I mean, he found a loophole, didn't he, in the examination system?
He wears a beret.
And he managed. I mean, if you're going to say, right, in order for you to pass this exam, leave your completed papers in an envelope outside my office. How open to abuse is that?
Oh, so it's the university's fault.
It's the university's fault there. However, the other bit, the bit about ruffling up your hair and putting stuff around your eyes, and then the whole sob story, you found a loophole in the human soul. So I'm going to say, and you obviously haven't got any remorse. In fact, I'm going to say David enjoys telling this story. And then, oh yes, let's kick back and hear about that time when I took the system and turned it upside down to my own advantage. So I'm going to say not forgiven.
Not forgiven. Not forgiven. Dear Father Simon and the Pardoning Populace. I think it's very good. I don't think we've had that one before. Many confessions take you back decades. Okay, Bobby, it's Terry and Ollie.
Just checking. Was it Terry with a Y or
Terry
an
is
IE?
with an I.
Oh, yeah.
So,
right.
Okay, and
So
Ollie,
you're born-
Ollie's with an IE, and Ollie is a guy.
Yeah.
I believe in this. Many confessions take you back decades to different times, but I ask forgiveness for something that happened nearly a year ago on April the 1st, 2016. And no, Brother Matthew, this is not a prank or an April Fool.
Good.
Okay? My fiancé, Ollie, and I had a rare child-free day, and like most parents, Rather than relaxing and actually enjoying ourselves, we loaded the car full of junk and general rubbish, ready to drop at the local tip. Arriving before it opened, we decided to pop into the baker's to get some brunch, something to fuel us, ready for the lifting and the heaving and the scratching and the barging that a trip to the dump often entails. So, carbs in hand, we crossed the road back to the car. This heap of junk was a recent second-hand purchase, which quickly developed some enduring/infuriating features/faults. To make matters worse, Ollie, who is an ex-mechanic, was not present at its purchase, and so took great delight in seeing me live to constantly regret it. You can imagine, you can
Yes.
picture the scene. Ollie got in the passenger door. I was struggling with the lock on the driver's side, as clearly yet another endearing fault was developing. Exasperated, he leant across and opened my door from the inside. I shook my head. Once again, it was proven that my impromptu purchase did not make me wife of the year. Now the bloomin' lock on the door has broken, I muttered under my breath. We put our bags in the passenger footwell and eagerly opened our brunch. We munched our way through bits of bread and filling flying everywhere. Rustic baguettes, very nice. Some chicken Caesar fell from mine. Ollie had a bit of egg, mayo and cress, all falling on the floor. Not a problem, I thought we'd vacuum it up later. I put the key in the ignition to put the radio on for some background noise. Oh, thanks. But I couldn't get the inbuilt steering lock off. I muttered something unbroadcastable at the car as Ollie lamented, "It's the worst car ever, ever, ever." "How do I get this thing to unlock?" I asked. Frustrated, he leant over and grabbed the key off me. "What have you done to the key? You've broken it," he said as he put one of his big tattooed arms across me and started bashing the steering wheel, jolting it left and right, because that always works, trying to get the lock off. Mid-steering wheel attack, the back passenger door of the car opened behind me, and a sweet old man began loading his shopping inside the car. So I turned around, pausing my unbroadcastable verbal attack, and said to the gentleman, "I'm sorry, love, you got the wrong car." He looked utterly shocked and quite scared as Ollie was angrily shouting and hitting the steering wheel still. The elderly gent began stuttering and mumbling something under his breath as he began removing his shopping bags, all the time apologising profusely. Poor bewildered man, I thought. What felt like an eternity had passed before my blushing cheeks and racing heart had realised something that my mind was clearly not yet to cotton on to. I looked at Ollie. He had begun to pack away his lunch. I looked over my shoulder. No rubbish. And then it hit me. We own a 3-door car.
What?
Why on earth has the back passenger door just opened? Plus, where is the floor-to-ceiling smelly junk and rubbish? Oh, yes! Head spinning to and fro, like a remake of The Exorcist, my senses awakening. This car smelled fresh. Where are my half-consumed bottles of water and chocolate car wrappers that for weeks I'd mindlessly strewn and stuffed into all the car's orifices? The radio wasn't the same. This car was immaculate. That's right, Father Simon. We were quite casually sat bashing someone else's steering wheel while spraying our brunch, absolutely everywhere, on someone else's floor. We grabbed our bags and got out of the car. I began nervously laughing. I'm so sorry, our cars are very, very similar. We were parked 5 cars down. Ollie began apologising profusely, but the combination of Ollie's extensive tattoo collection and the sheer horror on the old gentleman's face had begun to draw the attention of passers-by, so much so they'd stopped in their paths. The old gentleman cried, "I was only shopping up here. They were trying to start my car." He eventually drove off, leaving us stood in the street in shock, bypassers still staring, clearly wondering whether they should now hand themselves in as witnesses. I thank the good Lord that the key didn't fit, otherwise we'd have got to the tip before we'd noticed anything. See, they were parents. I think that's probably what it was. So, Father Simon, we ask for your forgiveness, please, from this old gentleman for spraying his car with lunch, physically beating his steering wheel, and potentially traumatising him with what looked like the worst attempted car robbery of all time. I literally cried with laughter all morning when we got home. Yours from the accidental car thieves, Terry and Ollie. Well, having kids can addle the brain. But it is, if you think it's your car, maybe it does take a while before you realise you've got all the right clues. Maybe it's the same kind of model. It didn't occur to them that it was smelt clean, the junk wasn't there. The number of doors was wrong. Everything. Sister Bobby, what do you think?
I think you're absolutely right, because you're doing something that's not in your general routine. You've got a day off without the child, so suddenly what you're normally focused on is your child being safe. Suddenly your brain has gone to pot. And also, you've just gone and bought 3 sausage rolls or whatever. So basically your mind's concentrating on something else. You know, hot sausage roll, the child's gone, you're having fun, you're going to the tip. But what better day is that? The only thing that really confused me about
Excuse
this...
me?
Listen,
What? You going to the tip?
I think
what
most
better
peop-
day is that?
Well, I think most people did last weekend, cut the lawn and went to the tip. I
Yeah,
think that's what
did that.
90% of the population who had a vehicle and a garden did.
Doesn't make it a good day, though, does it?
Well,
It just means a
sometimes that
day
is a
of
good
jobs.
day. Okay, the other thing is the door lock. How come did they break the door lock when she got into? That's the only thing is, as long as they didn't break the door, you're forgiven. I think anyone could make this mistake. I think it's easily done, but I do feel sorry for the little old man whose car it was.
Brother Matthew.
I think, Bobby, you're given far too much benefit of the doubt. It's a completely different car. It's got 5 doors instead of 3 doors. It might be the same colour, it might be the same make, but it's not your car. How are you two allowed out on your own? How do you even function? Oh, I'm just going to get in this car. This is obviously our car because it looks a bit like our car. Oh, it's got more doors. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to break the steering wheel. So I am not going to forgive because, yes, this poor old man who thinks he can't even do his shopping without someone trying to start his car. Yes, definitely not forgiven.
I thought it was the old guy's fault. I thought that's what you were going to say. It's the old man's fault for leaving the car half undone.
For having a car with 2 more doors
I
than
think he
them.
was asking for trouble.
Obviously.
There is a slight PG on this, I think, only if you're eating. Just one of those.
That's good. It's good.
This is from Nigel. All right, Nigel. Simon and the wardens of the Drivetown parish. My confession takes us back to the heady days of the 1970s. After leaving school at my earliest opportunity and without any qualifications, I ended up doing countless seasonal jobs until I paid for myself to gain an HGV licence in 1979. I had a dream of being a long-distance lorry driver, visiting Europe's most glamorous cities, Barcelona, Rome, Calais. I wanted to go to all of them. Not that Calais deserves to be included in that list with Barcelona and Rome. Anyway, even though I held the licence, I couldn't find any work due to this catch-22 of never got any experience, therefore no one would give me a job to get the experience in the first place, which is true of quite a few jobs. So I went to the local labour exchange.
Labour exchange, yes.
Those were the days.
Now the job centre, of course, and the only job offered to me was a relief HGV driver for the local borough council. Wasn't exactly what I wanted, but it was a start. My new employer, the borough council, had recently invested a lot of money in a new sports complex and was due to open for the coming football season. The newly sown grass seed on the 2 football pitches was suffering from the summer heat, and everyone was in fear that the new sports complex would not be ready for the prestigious opening ceremonial games was only a few weeks away. After being there only 2 days on this job, I was told to report to the council depot in the town that looked after this new sports complex the following morning. So that's exactly what I did. I reported to the depot, and Jeff showed me to the spare tanker and how the vehicle worked and how to load and unload the tank. These particular tankers were used... there is a point where you'll get ahead of me on this, okay? These particular tankers were used for transporting liquid, emptying septic tanks, helping to suck out blocked sewers,
Yeah, we're
and
all there
that
now.
kind of thing.
Yeah, we're all there now. Yeah.
I was told to... But it's the anticipation.
Yes, of course.
I was told to go to the local park that had a large pond and suck up loads of clean water, take it to the new sports ground and flood the pitches to save the grass for the next couple of days. I'm sure I'm not the first seeker of penitence, Father Simon, to say, in hindsight, well, you know, it's a wonderful thing and everything. However, looking back, if I had had more experience and know what I know now, I would have realised that on arrival at the park, I was already driving a full tanker. If I'd had more experience and know what I know now, I would have known that it takes about 30 minutes to suck up 1,000 gallons of water, not just the 2 minutes that it took me to fill up this particular tanker on this very first occasion. When I got to the sports field, I did exactly what I was told to do: stay off the pitch, roll out the hose, and start by flooding between the goalposts in the penalty area. I opened the valve on the back, put the lever from suction to pump, then got back into the cab, pretending that I was off on the autobahns and driving a huge articulated lorry across mainland Europe. I might even have been making the brum 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 sound, because that's where I was in my head.
Okay.
In no time at all, the load was discharged. Snapping out of my autobahn dreams, I got out of the cab. What I saw in the goldmouth in front of me still haunts my nightmares. Stephen King wants to make a film of this. The goldmouth was awash with what I shall call
Yeah.
waste.
Yes.
Shall we call that?
Yeah, we can say
including various items associated with waste.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are items listed here.
Yes, we probably don't need to go through them. No.
This was going to take some time. Unknown to me, the spare tanker, you see, this is what happened. The spare tanker had been used by the regular driver on a call-out to clear a blocked sewer the night before. He'd used the spare tanker so he could use the newer model the following morning and didn't have time to wait for the sewage works to open to discharge the load. I went back to the depot and reported what had happened. Steve, the groundsman, who's our hero for the night, was called from the bowling green in another part of the town to view what had happened. Gosh, he said. He had to leave it until it had dried out the following day. Then he had to rake up several wheelbarrow loads of the said items
Yeah.
associated with the bathroom that I had flooded onto his beloved pitch. The stink was horrendous. I must have done about a dozen loads over the 3 days, and the smell seemed to increase with every load I took. The opening game went ahead on schedule, but I've always felt sorry for the goalie. And often hoped that the players did not do too many sliding tackles in that particular goalmouth. You don't really do a sliding tackle in the goalmouth,
Not
do you?
really. It doesn't happen that often.
I would like to take this up at, different times in the 70s.
Maybe in the 70s it happened all the time.
I would like to take this opportunity to seek forgiveness from Steve, the groundsman, and the two goalies who had to change ends at half-time for my inexperience. Father Simon and the collective, please forgive me. Well, he wasn't, it was an honest mistake, I suppose, but he was maybe just a little bit too keen. He should have realised that his tanker was already full. I thought, while you're driving it, you will surely be aware. Anyway, he didn't. What do you think, Sister Bobby?
Well, first of all, Nigel, you know that catch-22 thing that so annoyed you before you got your first job? That's why it's there. So you go and become a driver's mate, really, and you don't take the responsibility because you don't have the experience, because there's always things that you don't know about that are not written down for you. However, I will say, what's your saving grace is you didn't know. They told you to go and take a tanker. It was a new job for you. They should have taken better care of you. I actually don't think this is Nigel's fault. He didn't really know how long it took to fill a pond. And what you did is provide liquid manure for the ground. So I think there's always an upside. Really, and it's not your fault. It's just not his fault. It's the guy.
It wasn't just that.
It's also the gentleman who took it the night before left it full. Even if he didn't have time, it should have been a big warning that this is still full and not emptied. So, Nigel, I think in this case you are absolutely forgiven because it's not really all your fault. It's the guy before for not telling everybody.
If you've emptied a chemical toilet ever?
I have.
Well, it's sort of. Anyway, Matthew.
Okay. I mean, obviously, Bobby's right that the guy who used it the night before should have left a note saying, "I haven't had time to empty this, so make sure you don't, go and spray this all over a nearby field." But I think the problem here is it's a design flaw, isn't it? Because really, there should be some kind of indicator on the pump that says tank's full or tank's not full, and then of course Nigel would have known what he was doing because he would have seen the tank not full or full. So I'm going to say it is down to the tanker's designers. They are the ones that should shoulder the blame for this mishap, and therefore definitely forgive them.
Okay, John says, Simon and the Juggernauts of Justice, I come to you seeking penitence for incidents that took place in the early 80s when I was an engineering student at university. My course was what's known as a thin sandwich, which means that's not the food reference, by the way. This means he spent half of each year at university and the other half gaining experience working in industry. My very first industrial placement was in Neath, quite a long way both in distance and culture from Essex, which is what I was used to. During these placements, my employer paid for my accommodation and food. In Neath, I was put up in a terraced house. My landlady, who was genuinely called Mrs. Jones, lived in the house next door, and I have to say, was a slightly scary lady, not someone to get on the wrong side of. Something I found out once when I left the immersion heater on all night by mistake, which is an expensive thing to do. She cooked my breakfasts and evening meals in her own kitchen, and then she brought mine through my back door to me in my own dining room. How about that? For the first few weeks, I was alone in the house, and so dined alone each evening, food provided by Mrs. Jones. Several very nice meals were consumed in this way, but one evening she brought me round what she called fags and peas. Now, Simon, you need a broad Welsh accent. Is that right, John? Well, you're going to... All right. No! You're going to be disappointed. I have to say, Father Simon, I wasn't a very adventurous eater in those days, and one taste of the faggots and the mushy peas convinced me that I was not going to like them. Absolutely, I didn't like it. I was too scared to tell her, of course, so on the spur of the moment, I scooped it off the plate into a handy paper bag, rushed upstairs, flushed it down the loo, and returned it to the table to pretend I'd just finished eating. When she came in with my pudding... Wow, this is amazing. She exchanged pleasantries as usual. She had no idea what I'd done. But I thought, whew, got away with that. And I went out for a bag of chips later because I was still hungry. All the other meals she cooked me were genuinely very nice. But about a week later, I was dismayed to be given fags and peas. Again, it kind of needs a different name, doesn't it, really? But fags and peas is what it was. I dealt with it in the same way. Over the next few weeks, I became quite adept at disposing of fags and peas. I also ate quite a few bags of chips, I have to say, because that's what I did after every fags and peas incident. Unfortunately, I was clearly a bit too good at clearing my plate on fags and peas night, as she became of the opinion that it was now my favourite meal. A special treat. I really didn't want to hurt her feelings, and it had now happened too many times for me to put her straight on the matter. One particular fags and peas evening, disaster struck. I had just scooped it off the plate into the paper bag as usual and was just passing the front door en route up the stairs to the toilet when I heard Mrs. Jones coming back in through the back door with pudding. And I panicked. What should I do? I only had seconds to dispose of the bag. So, somewhat stupidly, I just threw it on the floor on the doormat and raced back to my seat at the dining table. Mrs. Jones complimented me on finishing my favourite food so quickly and put my pudding in front of me. Unfortunately, she then pottered about tidying things up whilst I ate my pudding. Of course, the worst thing happened, and soon a loud shriek was heard coming from the direction of the front door. "The kids of today," she said, sounding as though she was from London. "The little scamps," she said, again, equally loudly. I tried not to look confused as she continued. "Look what they've put through my letterbox. The blighters." I tried to look shocked and surprised at what had happened. Apparently she thought someone had put a dead animal through the letterbox and then run off. To my amazement, she appeared to have absolutely no idea that the contents of the bag was not a dead animal. Well, I suppose it was in a way, but it was none other than her lovingly cooked meal, her fags and peas. If she'd smelt it, she'd have known, of course. But who would smell a suspected dead animal? Certainly not Mrs. Jones. Anyway, I commiserated with her about the youth of today, what with me being 19 at the time, and it was only mentioned again a couple of times in a laughing kind of hindsight sort of way. So several more fags and peas dinners were served to me during my 3-month stay. So I don't think she suspected me. However, I did feel bad about it and have lived with the guilt for 35 years. Hence, I would now like to beg forgiveness from Mrs. Jones, all because I didn't want to hurt her feelings, and also I was a little bit scared of her. My next placement was to Bradford, where I was introduced to a whole new culinary experience of curry and chapatis in the sort of places where you had to pay a deposit if you wanted cutlery. But anyway, that is another story altogether. Anyway, so I think, John was trying to do the right thing. Mrs. Jones was trying to do the right thing. It was just that he couldn't bring himself to say, you know what, faggots and peas is not going to be my favourite food. What do you say, Sister Bobby?
Well, I wonder about Mrs. Jones. I really do, because I wonder if she really did know it was or think it was an animal. Oh. Because if you look closely, I wonder if she opened the bag or she did feel the warmth and the kind of quite liquidy feeling. I don't know. I wondered whether she knew it was faggots and peas.
So she knew all along?
Well, maybe she did know, but she continued to feed him with it. But I think actually the thing is, John, you did it to spare her feelings, and that is absolutely fine. No harm done, no damage to the doormat, obviously.
And the chip shops in Neath did pretty well
with scraps.
out of John, I would think.
Forgiven, John, this time.
Nigel, you're faded up now.
Thank you, I'm back. Should we do fags and peas? Should we have a straw poll?
No, I really don't think that's a...
Well, okay. I certainly used to eat them. Funny if I worked on a...
I used to have them for tea. We used to have them on a regular basis. Brains, faggots.
I worked on a farm in Somerset, dairy farm, and we had the same meal every night of the week. Not the same one but every week. So you'd have fish on Friday and you'd have faggots on Tuesday, etc. But dining on your own as well, I think that's quite tough for a start. I have to say, I love food. I don't really like eating on my own that often. I think I like company and what it's all about. So for him to have gone all that way, he's obviously a caring soul. And he was trying to put out... no, why not? You're not forgiven.
What? He's not forgiven?
No. I just, you could have just said to her, I don't like faggots. I'm sorry.
All right.
Thank you very much. But on this case, no, I bet you're with me, aren't you, here, Matty Moo?
Yes,
Thought you might.
absolutely. I would be. I mean, apart from the fact I have no problem eating on my own, very happy eating on my own.
In fact, you prefer it.
Yes, quite. So I am going to say, here's the problem, as Bobby quite rightly says, he was just trying to be polite, wasn't he? He didn't want this meal, and it kept getting served, and he didn't have the nerve to say to this very frightening, let's not forget that, landlady, who knows what she would have done, who knows that things could have turned very quickly. So he was doing the right thing, sparing everyone's feelings, and as we've already said, the chippies of Neath did very well. So I am definitely going to forgive.
Well, they were this week's confessions. Who did you forgive? Your own dodgy secret, please. Nicely told, with humour and irony, and a few voices. Confessions at bbc.co.uk. And if you missed any of our drive time shows, thanks for your lack of commitment, but you can always listen back online, or you can download to your smartphone or tablet from the BBC iPlayer radio app. Of course you've got it. On Monday, Johnny Rotten was here, John Lydon, in the studio for a long time. And his Mr. Rotten songbook, by the way, I mean, job's done because it's all sold out. There were only 1,000, but they did cost 300 quid each. Tuesday, of course, Gordon Lightfoot, Carole King, David Bowie and Argent. John Bishop was in on Wednesday talking about his chat show. And also Tony Thorne, the lexicographer, told me about not using the word groovy unless I was being ironic. Then anyway, on Foodie Thursday, Nigel came up with probably one of the most talked about dishes. Chris was going crazy about it at breakfast, but then you get very hungry at breakfast. It was the fabulous chicken tikka masala pie. Anyway, if you made it to the end of last week's podcast, you had to tweet, "Ooh, Gary Davis."
Ooh, Gary Davis.
Ooh, Gary Davis.
That's "Ooh, Gary Davis."
Ooh, Gary Davis.
Ooh, Gary Davis.
So thank you to everyone who did indeed tweet to say they got there. It says Fiona and Matt and Malcolm and Pam and John and everybody else. Thank you very much indeed for just proving that you did actually get to the end. This week's special encrypted code phrase is, keep it groovy, but only in an ironic way. Thank you very much.